Shortly after I began to walk, it was determined that I was flat-footed and pigeon-toed. Sounds awful, doesn't it? But there was nothing at the time that could help or correct my being flat-footed, but being pigeon-toed, I wore braces on my legs every night at bedtime to help straighten out my feet so I wouldn't be walking like a pigeon with my feet pointing inward. And I wore those braces for about 7 years and eventually corrected my feet and my ability to walk normally. As a young kid, I loved the game of basketball and football. And when I would gather with my friends to play either game, because of what others considered my handicap, I was always the last one to be chosen for the team. I was the one who would end up sitting on the bench, if not all of the game, most of the game. And if I didn't make it out on the court or field, I would be afraid that if I did make it out on the court or field, I would be afraid that no one would pass me the ball, or probably more terrified if they did. It's never easy being on the outside, where you might feel you live in a world in which you feel you don't belong. Imagine being a woman in a male-dominated career. Imagine living in a place where your culture is not accepted, or your native language is not spoken, or to be checking out at the grocery store and feel the stares as you count out your food stamps, worried that you will not have to set something aside because you can't afford it. Can you imagine what it would be like being a player with the 49ers or the Chiefs who has worked endlessly to be prepared to play in the Super Bowl, the greatest game in their life, only to be told right before the game that their injury would sideline them? Imagine what it would be like to be falsely accused of something you didn't do and then have to live with a damaged reputation. Can you imagine what it's like to walk out of a doctor's office with a diagnosis that will define you for the rest of your life? Or to have to maneuver the walker up the steps you once could jump to at a time? Or to be crippled with a stroke that no matter how hard you try, you can't form the word you want so much to speak? Can you imagine what it would mean to so desperately want to belong that you would risk your reputation, your beliefs, just to be accepted? Imagine knowing that your job is at risk because you're too old. Or as a young man or woman, to surrender to the truth that deep down you have known for so long that you're gay and you're absolutely terrified as to what that will mean in your life. Can you imagine what it would be like to be a leper? Completely isolated from daily interactions with others, like the leper in our gospel reading this morning. I hope so. Because then, in all of life, no matter what the circumstances, no matter what the situation, you can always imagine what it would be like to be touched by the hand of Christ. A hand of compassion and not judgment. A hand of love and not disdain. A hand of healing and not condemnation. A hand of hope and not fear. To be touched by the hand of Christ as the leper was in our gospel reading this morning, is to know again, or maybe for the first time, that you're loved and that you do belong. It's the hand of Christ that crosses over whatever separates us or divides us in this world. It's the hand that reconnects us to our Creator. It's the hand that holds and extends acceptance and hope and delight of our God, who made us all, who's connected to us all, and who loves us all. I hope we know what it's like to be touched by the hand of Christ. Because once we do, it's far more likely that we will be what St. Paul calls on us to do in our second reading this morning. To be imitators of Christ and become that hand of Christ that reaches out to someone else on the outside. Just imagine that.